morals and how morals can help us to be able to heal from CPTSD and borderline personality disorder. There's a true story of a rich CEO. He was, big time. He had his name on the building of the company that he was running, and he had access to all the funds. And well, he utilized that access. So he would go out and spend money like crazy, cars, boats, and he would put it all on the company, or at least a lot of it in the company's name, that wasn't really appropriate to have the company pay for. Huge trips and expeditions to other continents. And he had multiple houses and mistresses and properties. And so he really lived a lavish lifestyle. Well, eventually it caught up with him and he was investigated. And true enough, he was using funds inappropriately. He was not just spending his own money, but he was spending company money on things that the company wasn't supposed to be paying for, and were really his own personal wants and desires. So he got in trouble with the law, and he was ordered to pay back $2 million to this company, which was later sold. And what was interesting about this case is the company was held partially responsible too for his lavish spending. Why? Because the company failed to set limitations on him. The company was held partially responsible for the CEO's spending because the company failed to put limitations on the CEO. Likewise, you will find your life out of control if you fail to place limitations on yourself. Yes, you must self-govern in order to heal and in order to stay adverse to relapsing into borderline personality disorder or complex post-traumatic stress disorder. A borderline personality disorder is characterized by, like CPTSD, emotional dysfunction, unstable relationships, impulsivity, and an unstable sense of self. With borderline personality disorder, these things tend to be exacerbated to a more hardened, more severe degree than just a rank and file person suffering from CPTSD. Individuals with borderline personality disorder may struggle with their personal morals and their ethics in various ways. Although it's important to note that these people are all different. And so some will exhibit behaviors and have had experiences that differ from the next person. And persons with borderline personality disorder are not inherently valueless or moralless. They're not inherently wicked or bad people, but they struggle to be able to hold on to a sense of morality. Morality being your internal rule system of right and wrong. Your internal rule system of right and wrong. I often use the term ethics to refer to the same concept, your internal rule system of right and wrong. So that's your morals. Now, what do you think about your morals? Do you feel like you are a strongly moraled person? Do you have good internal boundaries, limitations that you set upon yourself in order to guide you? Because many trauma survivors have impulsive behavior. And when you have impulsive behavior, it's going to lead you to act on your immediate desires. And as you can imagine, that means that you're not thinking of the potential consequences. And so therefore, you're going to conflict with your own personal values and ethics. One girl who had borderline personality disorder found herself, when she was bored or sad, to make herself feel better, would go on dating apps, set up dates with guys with the intention of sleeping with them on the first date. And she would bounce from guy to guy, These would be different men each time. And so she was literally sleeping around impulsively as a way to cope with her feelings. Emotional dysregulation is another hallmark of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Here we're talking about intense, rapidly shifting emotions, which is also a core feature of borderline personality disorder. When overwhelmed by intense emotions, a survivor may struggle to maintain a sense of right and wrong. Now, when you're very upset and very angry, suddenly violence doesn't seem like such a horrible idea. Does that make sense? And so you start to lose your initial ground or sense of morality. And so those who suffer from emotional dysregulation also have destructive and impulsive behaviors that contradict their personal morals. One woman, for instance, when she got into an argument with her boyfriend, which was a very low level discussion, her boyfriend said something that was kind of mocking of her, sort of mocked the way that she talked. And she lost it. And she was like, if you're going to be that way, blah, blah, blah. And then she starts yelling. She starts raising her voice. She gets up out of her chair. She grabs her belongings. She says, this relationship's over. We're done. She breaks up with her boyfriend on the spot. She walks out of the house. She slams the door on the way out. She gets in her car and she just starts driving in a direction for an hour as if she were just going to run away. And she's going crazy. And then she blocked her boyfriend after texting him that he was a horrible person. Now, her reaction to those who don't have that level of dysregulation seems extreme for the level of discussion that she was in. She wasn't actually in any danger that would make it justified for her to run away like that. But for her, the emotions were so intense when she was mocked that she behaved as if she were actually in a survival, life or death situation. It can cause us, that level of emotional dysregulation can cause us to go against or contradict our own personal morals. Survivors also tend to suffer from black and white thinking, which is extreme thinking, right? So people are either good or bad, or something is either right or wrong, or someone is either amazing or they're vile and worthless. And so if you're viewing situations or people and their actions as completely good or bad, it's this dichotomous thinking, and it can make it challenging to navigate moral gray areas. You see, to have good morality, we have to be able to look at things with nuance, because everything doesn't break down to clear right and wrongs for every situation. Meaning, if something is right here in this situation, such as that you would not steal, that doesn't apply to absolutely every situation in the universe and in the stream of time. There could be moments and situations where something like that would be morally justifiable, but we can't access that nuanced thinking in the moral gray areas when we have black and white thinking. Those who have borderline personality disorder are not bad. Those who have CPTSD, like those who are diagnosed with borderline, are trauma survivors. So this has affected the way that they see the world and the way that they see themselves. One difference in the way they see themselves, they may have an identity disturbance. So identity disturbance is characterized by an unstable sense of self and struggling to establish strong, consistent values, because the values really are synonymous with the self. And so can you see how if you can't establish consistent values, that can lead you to not having good morals, since morals and values are about one and the same, or morals are a part of our value system. One woman who was a survivor was the first person to tell me, who was close to me, that she felt like she didn't know who she was. She's mentioned in the book under the name Morena. And what was surprising is Morena's sister, who was close in age and raised in the same household, said the same thing. Her sister said, I don't really know who I am either. Clearly, this was not a fluke. This is a product of growing up in an environment that was intense, neglectful, abusive, so that they weren't able to formulate their own identity very clearly. Also, survivors can have difficulty in interpersonal relationships. BPD, for instance, is marked by unstable, intense relationships, and individuals with BPD may struggle in maintaining healthy boundaries, empathy, perspective taking, which can contribute to conflicts related to personal morals, personal ethics, personal values. So, one woman who was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder has broken up with her boyfriend and gotten back together with him more than 46 times. Now imagine that. Is that standing strong in your personal belief system? Is that holding to your boundaries or values? Her boyfriend, by the way, is physically abusive, has landed her in the hospital multiple times. But every time she goes and breaks up with him, a few weeks later, they're back together again. Now, how can he respect her word if she says we're done? And then they're back together again. If she says, don't do this, tries to set a boundary, she's not enforcing her boundaries. She's going back on her word, teaching others to not respect her. And due to her lack of respect for herself, she continues to go back to an abuser and to stay with an abuser, despite access to some of the best treatment programs available. So again, it's important to know that while those who have CPTSD or borderline may face challenges related to morals, it doesn't mean they're inherently immoral people or lacking ethics. With support, with the healing program, like the one on my website, these individuals can overcome the symptoms of their psychiatric illness, and they can heal from their trauma, which is what's really at the root of both of these illnesses. So how can learning morals and setting personal limits be beneficial to you? So for instance, if you're struggling with emotional dysregulation, which can involve difficulties with impulsive behavior, learning morals helps you to set a framework for ethical decision-making. Understanding the consequences of your actions and having a more balanced approach can help you to be able to stay tethered to your morals. A good tool to use is STOP, S-T-O-P. This helps with emotional dysregulation. S-T-O-P stands for stillness, thoughtfulness, observance, patience. Stillness, thoughtfulness, observance, patience. So we want to remember when we're starting to feel, the moment you start to feel frightened or scared or angry or sad, remember to stop, be still, don't make an action, don't go anywhere, don't walk out of the door, don't get violent, don't hit anyone, don't cut yourself, be still, meaning hold the body still, don't do anything. Be thoughtful, which means to engage the cerebral cortex and to start thinking in the logical mind. When we start doing that now, we're able to analyze. This may take several seconds to bring the slow, logical mind, the cerebral cortex, into action, but once it's working and it's firing up, it can override the amygdala, which is that fight, flight, freeze, oh my gosh, I'm always in danger. And it can calm us. You can activate it by waiting. You have to be still and then purposely be thoughtful. We can control aspects of our brain, just like we control aspects of automated systems such as our blinking function. You can suddenly control your blinking function, even though you typically run it on an automated system. Your breathing function, you can hold your breath, you can breathe hard, you can control the breathing function, even though you typically run it on an automated system. Likewise, you can control the brain. That's why when we're being still, one of the things we do want to try to operate is the blinking and the breathing. Because of these being automated functions and us jumping in, it's helping us to activate the executive function. So close your eyes, or blink and purposely breathe in full and out slowly to slow down the energy in the brain, to activate the executive function. Cerebral cortex comes online. Now we're thinking. What are we thinking about? How do I feel? Why do I feel that way? How does that person feel? Why do they feel that way? Then we need to be observant. That's the O in stop. To be observant means to recognize the time and the place, the location, the stream of time that you're actually in. When we're not observant, we feel like we're in our childhood again, or we're back with the abuser, and we start acting like we're in a survival situation when we're not. When we're observant and we slow down, we realize, oh, I'm not in a survival situation right now. It's okay. I can relax. We realize I'm just with my boyfriend or my girlfriend. I'm just talking to my boss. I'm just talking to my parents. I don't need to overreact. I'm not a child anymore. I am here in 2020, whatever, and sitting in a kitchen. And I am a full grown adult with a car and a house and a mortgage or bills and a credit card, right? Observance helps us to get into the present. It's mindfulness. When we're in the present, we can act according to the actual present that we're in instead of according to an emotional flashback. Does that make sense? And finally, the P is patience. We have to be patient with ourselves, give ourselves time. Don't be hard on yourself if you make a mistake or you were impulsive. And we need to be patient with others. Give others time. Don't be so hard on them if they said something wrong or they made a mistake. Does that make sense? So utilize that tool. Remember, stop, memorize it, rehearse it. Put yourself mentally in situations where you're going to need to use it and envision yourself calling STOP to mind. That's, if you're joining us, stillness, thoughtfulness, observance, and patience. Now, when it comes to identity formation, both BPD and CPTSD can impact an individual's sense of self-identity. So they feel like they don't have a clear sense of who they are or what their personal morals and boundaries are. So learning morals and setting personal limits can help an individual create a healthy relationship dynamic with themselves in order to establish an identity and reduce the tendency to rely on everyone else. Because we should not be asking everyone else what we should do in moral situations. We should not be asking everyone else what we should do. Does that mean we can't take advice? No, of course we can take advice. Does that mean we can't have advisors? Of course not. But we should not be reliant on others to make moral decisions. We need a good, strong internal moral compass. That is knowing who we are. Does that make sense? We must know who we are. And you know who you are if you know your values. And you know your values if you're a moral person, meaning someone who sticks to their values, to what they believe is right, even when there is the push of emotions. Developing your morals will help you to have healthier relationships. Learning morals, setting personal limits helps you to create boundaries and good relationship dynamics, fostering open, respectful communication and promoting trust. Establishing boundaries that support your emotional well-being. Remember that boundaries are part of your responsibility over the self because you are the king or the queen of yourself, of your own sovereign nation. So you need to set boundaries and you need to stick to your boundaries, which means if you say, I'm going to leave, if this happens, then you get up and you leave when that happens. If you say, I won't tolerate this or I have to go at this time, then you do it, whether it's with your feelings, with your friends, whether it's with your children, whether it's with your parents. You do what you say you're going to do. You must be a woman of your word or a man of your word. By doing that, we teach people to respect us, and suddenly relationships aren't so horrible anymore. When we stop trying to please others and appease others, suddenly relationships aren't so draining anymore. When we're able to say, no, that's against my morals, it's against my values, I'm not into that, suddenly we're feeling like more calm in our relationships. And are we going to lose some people if we set boundaries? I sure hope so. I sure hope. Don't you want to lose some people? I think you should want to lose some people. I know you should. Setting boundaries may make us lose some relationships, but that's what we want. Your goal is to get to a place where you are surrounded by no abusers, no neglectors in your personal everyday life. Your goal is to get to a place where you're surrounded by no abusers, no neglectors, even if that means you're down to only one associate, even if that means you have 0 friends or family members that you associate with. That is a place where you could heal. You cannot heal when you have close associations with toxic family members and abusers. You cannot heal that way. Healing takes place when there are no abusers around you. So by respecting yourself and setting boundaries, and by learning to trust others, trust is a choice. If you're wondering where this trust is supposed to come from, it comes from the cerebral cortex. You're wondering where the trust is. It's up here. The thinking mind, which is not being activated when you're in emotional dysregulation, when you live in fear, you go, oh no, I can't trust anyone. I can't trust anyone. You can trust anyone you want to trust because it's actually here. It's in the thinking function. It's your executive function decides if you will trust a person, which is to allow a person to have a certain amount of access to you in your life. That's what trust is. It's just a decision. It's a choice. It's a choice to allow someone to have some access. Usually you're doing it so that you can have some access also to their resources. So trust is adaptive. We choose to trust because it's adaptive. It's going to help the relationship. Without the trust, there's no relationship. Trust should be one of our morals, one of our values. When it comes to impulsivity, self-destructive behavior, learning morals and setting personal limits provides individuals a framework to make more thoughtful and intentional choices, which reduces impulsive actions and promotes healthier coping mechanisms. In other words, if you set rules for yourself internally, then you will be able to stop yourself from being impulsive. You don't just say with a defeatist attitude, yeah, I'm just an impulsive person, as if you have no control. Because that's not going to work in a courtroom with the judge. It doesn't work with your boss. So you are expected, all of us in this universe expect you to control you. You're trying to control your boyfriend. You're trying to control other people, your sister and your parents. You're trying to make them heal. The only thing in this universe you control is yourself. So focus on that. Control yourself. And then the impulsivity will go down. You are not an impulsive person. You are a person who is not activating the cerebral cortex. How do we do that? We'll use the tools. Stop is one of them. Stillness, thoughtfulness, observance, patience. But we will need to learn moral values. Where do we learn moral values? By what we read, what we watch, what we listen to. So if you're reading, watching, and listening to immoral things for your life and your education and your entertainment, then you are not learning good morals. You also learn moral values from who you associate with. So if you want to learn more moral values, read things that can inform your morals, like scripture. Associate with people who have high moral standards, high moral values. Watch and listen to things that are going to help you to elevate your morals. If you had a parent who was fostering good morals, and building of ethics. They would have told you stories or read you stories as a child. They would have instructed you. They would have had deep conversations with you, used real life situations and examples to show you and to teach you, to help foster morals. They would have had consistency in the household. The reason I'm telling you that is not so you can look back and say, oh, I didn't have that. I'm telling you that because it's your job to be a parent now. I'm not talking about just to your children, I'm talking about to your inner child. It is your job to be the parent to your inner child. So how do we do this? How do we heal from borderline, CPTSD, narcissistic abuse, and trauma? We need to give ourselves the parenting that we did not get. You are a good parent. You have the ability to be a good parent. But parents will tell you it's not an easy job. It takes focus and commitment, consistency. So give yourself that. Give yourself focus and commitment. Give yourself consistency. And what do you think will happen if you start to parent yourself? Meaning you're reading yourself stories that are going to help you build morals. Meaning you're setting limitations inside yourself. What do you think will happen when you're telling yourself, remember to do stop, just like a good parent would? Remember our acronym: stillness, thoughtfulness, observance, patience. That's how you should be talking to yourself in your mind. No self-abuse. Oh, you're so stupid. You're so this, that. No abusive black and white thinking of the rest of the world. All men are terrible. All women are awful. All these people, I can't trust them. They're ugly. They're this. They're vile. They're worthless. No abusive talk about the world. No abusive talk about yourself. Stop judging. Don't judge anyone. Oh, that guy's wicked for sure. He's wicked for sure. I know he's wicked. I can tell. I can see his heart. I can read his motives. I can feel his energy. Did you know I'm an empath? I can feel people's energy. Stop that. Stop. You don't know what someone's motives are. You don't know all the intentions. You cannot read hearts. You are not God. You are human. You're human. You're human. You have empathic abilities, yes, but that is the ability to project what you believe they're thinking and feeling from your own thoughts and feelings, from your own head. That's informed by your own experiences, which have been rough. So stop assuming you know. Stop assuming you know why someone didn't call you, didn't text you, did this, or you don't know. You do not know. You can make assumptions, but hold it as purely an assumption. You can say, even to the person, I have an assumption that perhaps you're doing this because of this. Another good line to use, Brene Brown. A story I'm telling myself is, we use that in our relationships. So for instance, your husband doesn't greet you when he comes in the door. Instead of just assuming he's cheating or assuming he doesn't love you anymore, you tell him, hey, a story I'm telling myself is, you think I'm fat now because I've gained a couple pounds and you're not attracted to me anymore and you regret being in this marriage. You see how effective that communication is? Oh, but it makes me vulnerable. Well, you're in a marriage. You got in the marriage to be defensive and invulnerable? No. Trust is the currency of a relationship. So by exposing your vulnerable thought, that empowers your mate to then say, that's what you're thinking? No. Are you kidding? I like it with a little bit of fluff on it, actually. The reality is, I had a really tough day at work and I felt like I was going to cry when I came in the door. And knowing I'm your man, I didn't want you to see me like that because I was afraid you were going to lose respect for me. The story I was telling myself is that my woman won't love me anymore. She won't respect me anymore if I show my emotions. Wow. Good communication can go a long way. So learn the tools. A story I'm telling myself is stop with the, I can read your mind. No, you can't. Stop that. I already know what you, no, you don't. Stop. You don't know. Say that. Say, I don't know why you're doing what you're doing. A story I'm telling myself is this. So when we stop judging other people, that should be one of your moral values. I'm giving you that one for free. Just take that, put that in your lexicon of morals. I do not judge anyone. We're already bad enough, right? On our own, right? We already make enough mistakes and we don't want to be judged, right? So if we don't want to be judged, then we just shouldn't judge. Jesus used the illustration and said, you're going to be judged the way you judge others. So that's why I just forgive everyone all the time because I want to be forgiven because I know how awful I am. So if you don't want to be condemned, then stop condemning others. We want to utilize these tools as mechanisms to develop the moral self. A moral person, and this is key, sticks to their values always. There is no exception. There's no exception. Not unless you find out that your values were actually wrong or inadequate. But there is no exception to sticking to your values. You understand? So when you have to say no, you have to say no. I'm sorry, that conflicts with my values. When you look at it that way, you'll realize how concrete you can build yourself to be. When you build yourself to be concrete and you're no longer bending for others, you're going to know exactly who you are. That identity crisis is gone. So let's just do a healing meditation together right now. If you're in a safe place to close your eyes, just take a deep breath. Picture yourself just floating through empty space. And picture there are stars starting to appear around you. There are these floating little orbs of light. Each of those orbs of light represents a different moral value, something that's important to you. And I want you to picture that orb of light coming into you and coming into your heart so that the orb touches and penetrates you and becomes a part of the self. And so the first one, let's say, is love. And I want you to picture love as a orb of light coming towards you, coming into your heart. And then I want you to picture self-respect. And I want you to picture self-respect as an orb of light coming into the heart. And now I want you to picture forgiveness coming in. And now I want you to name the next one. What is another value for you that you want to have? And I want you to picture that orb of light coming into you. Now, when it becomes a part of you, you light up. But you are a concrete being, firm and established. It cannot be changed. It cannot be taken away from you. And you must act according to these orbs, according to these values in everything you do. Now picture yourself floating down to planet Earth and landing right outside your house or apartment. And then open your eyes. That was transformative. So this is the new us. We stick to our morals.